In the last story, we discovered that two disciples found out how important it is to put Jesus as number one in their life. And so it is with you and me. If you remember, the one dude, the scribe, he said, hey, you might have to go around homeless for a while. Your security and your needs, you're going to be needy. It's going to be pretty apparent that you need me. And then the second one was a story of the man who said, I got to first bury my father. He said, compared to me, it doesn't work. Jesus really has a claim, has a right to be number one in our lives. Why? Well, this story kind of explains even more. Matthew continues in his narrative. And if you remember, Jesus was going to go from Capernaum over to the other side because of the crowds. So he wanted to get away from it. He got in the boat. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's do a quick review of what Matthew is trying to declare in his wonderful book, called the book of Matthew. Here are some of the thoughts that we have thus far. Jesus has, and we can fill in the blank, he has everything that we need. He's a provider. He has power. He has wisdom. He has justice and all. But in these particular stories, he has authority. He has the right to rule. Oh, remember kingdom? Kingdom rule, dominion. He's the king. He has authority over, if you remember the devil in the wilderness. Satan came up against him in Matthew chapter 4. And Jesus said, it is written, and he had authority over the devil. He commanded him and he got delivered from him. He said, get behind me, Satan, and Satan left, in that story. And he also has, as you remember, deliverance power over demons. Remember the synagogue story that we really haven't gotten to, but I mentioned it briefly. And he cast out the spirits with his word, though. Remember all those that came to him at the door of Peter and Andrew. He delivered people from demons. He had authority over devils. It's pretty powerful. So he not only had the authority over devil himself, he has this authority, power over his soldiers, his army. So that's pretty cool. He has authority over the law and to reinterpret the law if he wants. You've heard it been said, but I say unto you. And Jesus Christ said, I came to fulfill the law. Wow, that's a bold statement for a man to say. So he's not just a man, see? He's divine, he's God. A lot of proof here, all these hints. Hello. Then he had authority in that Sermon on the Mount. He said he had authority to say, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, I never knew you. He has authority. For him to be saying that must be God. Entrance into the kingdom or out of the kingdom. He's the judge. He is the judge. And by the way, you'll see that in the later Gospels that Jesus is declared the judge. The Son of Man is the judge. He also had authority in his teaching. Remember the scripture said he spoke as one with authority, not of the other scribes, the teachers of the law. So he had authority in teaching. He had authority over sickness and disease. This is amazing. Like he had authority to heal people. Like from whatever sickness came, he conquered it. He destroyed it. He wiped it out. That's power. And that is who Jesus was. Does Jesus really have a right to be number one in your life? Of course, because of who he is. And then the next thing is that he had authority over his followers. He had the nerve, so to speak, the daring thing to say, follow me to Matthew. And he left his stuff, or follow me to the disciples. Remember when they were fishing and they were mending their nets and all in that Matthew 3 passage. So this is just so cool. And now the next one that we're going to find out is he actually has, are you ready? Drum roll. He has authority over nature itself. Now, who is that but God? Who can have authority over the nature itself, the earth, the winds, the fire, the, life itself? This is pretty cool. So in this next story, he left, and I'll do a quick drawing here, if you want to remember. He left Capernaum in this time. Let me see if I can get this for you. He left Capernaum from the beautiful Sea of Galilee. And so he's leaving the Sea of Galilee, or Capernaum, into a boat, or actually in Mark's passage, in Mark 4, this passage is also recorded. If you have more details, put it all together, you have more of the details. For example, it was at night. It was in the evening that he left. He had a long day. He had long days. And by the way, Jesus was exhausted. I love this next story because he was really tired. It shows his humanity as the Son of Man, which we talked about last time. And so he left Sea of Galilee. The last time I drew this kind of poorly because I didn't slant it down. And then it goes down like this, and it comes up like this, and it curves around. That's a better look. Sort of looks like a heart ball, so like I mentioned before. And the river comes out here. Capernaum is right about here probably. It's probably that 2.5 mile one away from here. Could be down here. There's a question. Maybe it's down here a little bit more. But anyway, so assuming that it was from here, whichever, it really doesn't matter that much. He traveled here, and he was traveling at night over here. And so he was sleeping while his other disciples, and Mark mentions other ships, so it wasn't just one boat that left, but there were other ships, which, you know, remember, he has a lot of disciples starting to follow him. And so they were traveling across here. He had, what, 12 at least, maybe 12 by that time, maybe not, but he could have 12, 15 or whatever in a boat. And I actually have a picture. I actually saw it when I visited the area of the Sea of Galilee. There's an actual boat that they found in the first century. They call it the Jesus boat because it was something similar to this. I don't know that what really was the authentic boat that Jesus and the disciples rode in, but hey, look at that. That's pretty cool to see that boat. I hope this is squared really well. That's an actual boat of wood that they found really buried in the Sea of Galilee underneath. It's probably one of the greatest finds and archaeological finds in archaeology that they found in the last century. I think it was 1968 or something. They actually found this boat at the bottom of the sea. The sea is about, I think it's something like 400, a little over 400, maybe 412, I think it is, feet, you know, down. And the Sea of Galilee is actually the second lowest point in Earth. And, but anyway, they found that actual boat right there, and it's a fishing boat. Now, it's debatable whether they had sails. Maybe some of them did, maybe some of them didn't. So what I did, just for the fun of it, it's like, I don't have a boat in my house to show, but I chose to get this right here. Like, it's corn on the cob. It's my corn on the cob that I put on here. And so these fishermen didn't have snorkels and tanks of oxygen, but it was sort of dangerous at times to be on that sea in those boats. Lots of good fish. It was salty water, somewhat salty. It's not like the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the lowest point on the earth. That's 1,300. It's 1,312 feet below sea level. And I'll explain that in a second. Well, I might as well go and show it to you now. But basically, if you were to draw a cross-section, I don't know if that's the right word. If you were to take a look at the sea and the land, you know, from the side, not from the top, like an aerial view. So we're going to turn it over so that you're looking at it from the side. And so we have the Sea of Galilee right here. I mean, the Mediterranean Sea, MS here. And then you have this land right here. There's mountains and all. I'm not going to draw it all. And then it comes across here. And then you get to the Sea of Galilee. And then it goes down. Goes down 630 feet below sea level. See, this is a sea level here, you know, right here. It goes downward. And it's the second lowest point on the earth. It's the second lowest lake. Okay. And so this is how it looks like that. There's the water that goes 600 something feet, over 630 feet down. Okay. Now, if you go way down here, like to the Sea of the Dead Sea, if you go way over here, it goes down like this, 1,312 feet. I think that's right, 1,312 feet. And way down there, it goes really low. It's the lowest point on the earth. It's a big rift valley there. And which is also important to this particular story, there's surrounding mountains, like ravine mountains, ravine-marked mountains around the Sea of Galilee. So I haven't studied all the mountains yet, which I'd like to eventually. But if this is it, they have mountains over here. They have mountains over here. Like over here, you'll see. And what happens is cold air is funneled in. It's sucked in to this real low spot, this real warm water, warm place down in there. And the cold water comes down in here, the cold air, I mean. Cold air comes from the western side, and I think the eastern side, I believe is for both. I might change that later as I keep researching. And the cold air hits this, and it churns the warm waters, and then it becomes very turbulent. real tempest, a real storm, and it's so sudden. It could be clear daylight, they say. It's like clear, and all of a sudden a storm hits. You know how a storm, typically you can see it coming? Well, this is just kind of wild in that area. Some violent sort of winds come in there, and they hit, and they clash with each other. And the actual word in the Greek is, there was a tempest, or an earthquake, a water earthquake, an earthquake of the sea. And so the story reads as this: when he got into the boat and his disciples followed him, so he got on the boat in the evening, as it says in Mark, without warning, a furious, really just a violent earthquake of a wind storm came up on the lake. Said that the waves were coming over the boat. Now, if Jesus had, like, let's say 12 or 15, the boat was kind of lower too, because there's weight in there. And Jesus, by the way, was in the hinder part, was in the back part. Like, I don't know, he was back in the back. Like if the boat is going like this, and I am playing with a corn on the cob holder. It's too funny, but it's going like this, and he was back here in the hinder part, kind of a lower part. Maybe he had something over him or something. It's kind of cool at that time. I don't know. It might have been. I don't know what the temperature was. And then all these guys were in here. Now I found some little figures. This is an actual army man. So this is a little large. It's probably about the right size. And then I have another little guy right here. This little guy. He's too small. I have a lot of these little figures here. He's like, nope, this is too small. Whoop, he's down inside there, that's too small. And this one is probably a little bit too large, but picture these guys in here, and some of them are probably sleeping with Jesus, and some of them are, rowing the boat or something, and they're tugging along. It takes 2 hours, it says, to sail from one side to the other. And so here it is. Jesus is in this boat, sleeping. He's tired. And he also trusts God. See, when you trust God, you can go to bed as, knowing that you're safe in God's hands. Child, never be afraid of anything. When you've given your life to God and given your life to Jesus, he's got your life. And if he wants to take it early, then he'll take it, and that's wonderful. You'll be in heaven. But my point is that you don't have to worry or anything. Well, that thing was hit hard. It was sudden like this. And the disciples went crazy. They woke him up too, which is a good thing. I mean, well, in one way you could think, well, hey, Jesus is back here in the boat. He's sleeping back here. We're cool. And at this point, the boat's going like this. And water, especially because of the weight of the guys, was really starting to maybe even sink the boat. It came in. Now, I'm not sure why Jesus didn't feel that water in there, but I don't know how it was built exactly, but I don't know. That's something I'll keep thinking about and looking into. They woke him and said, Lord, save us. It says, we're going to drown. By the way, I love that Mark says something different and Luke says something different. And some people say, well, see, the Bible's against each other, contradictions. No, Matthew was written this, and he remembers all of them saying different things. So they're all saying different things. Don't you care for us? I think Luke said, or Mark said. We'll get into those renditions, those narratives later, the story. And then he replied, you of little faith. I mean, why are you so fearful? He said, why are you afraid? Why are you so afraid? So he woke up. Oh, what's going on, fellas? He didn't do that. And he says, you of little faith. By the way, that is mentioned 5 times, I think 5 or 6 times, all through these passages. He said, you of little faith. I do not want Jesus to say to me, you of little faith. Like, don't you realize who's in the boat with you? Don't you realize who's in your life, child and teenager and adult? If you've given your life to Jesus, who's in the boat with you, you're not going to sink, because Jesus Christ would sink with you if that happened. And it says, then he got up and rebuked the waves. By the way, in the other Gospels, he rebuked the waves and did all that. Then he rebuked them. And one says, Mark said, why is it that you have no faith? It's just a real rebuke here. And it says, and it was completely calm. Now, this is what's amazing. Then he got up and rebuked the winds. And in the Greek, I believe I've read this and heard this in different sources. It says, be muzzled. Like, shut up. Muzzle something. Muzzle an ox, or muzzle a dog that stops barking. You can pull it in. So the winds ceased, and he rebuked the waves and the sea, the water. Waves and water. Wow. He rebuked it and said, be silent, or be still, or whatever. And it was completely calm. And it's just bam, like that. Whew. Wow. Just a total flat sea. The boat was going like this, ready to turn over or sink or something. And it goes. That's cool. That's amazing. Well, these guys were amazed. At least they had enough faith to wake him up, because they said, save us, rescue us, which is what we should do when we're in trouble. Rescue me, Jesus, you know. At least they had some faith here. I mean, he still said, you have little faith. You know, they should have realized who was with him. And this is what they learned in this story. What kind of man is this? That's what they said. What extreme character, what exotic is what one translation said. What exotic man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. Jesus Christ had authority over nature itself. Whew. That is reminiscent and echoes from the Old Testament, where it says God over and over, like 6 passages. In Job, it says it. In Psalms over and over, how he controls the waves and the raging waves and the seas and all that. God is in control of it. God set man to have dominion over the earth. And Jesus Christ, as the second Adam, fulfills that for sure. Like, he had dominion. He told the waves and the water to be still. Be muzzled is what it says. Like, shoo, quiet. And it was a total, absolute calm. Peace in the midst of the storm. And you can have peace in your life as a Christian. And you can know that when you are going through rough times, because even though this went like this, there was later on, as you'll see, way up in the late part of Acts, what is it, Acts 27, I think, or something like that, where there was a storm and there was a shipwreck, and Paul, the man of God, was in there, and he also told him, none of you are going to be destroyed. God, there's an angel of the Lord that told me that it was going to happen. And so God does allow sometimes your ship to go over really trying, troubled times in your life. It wasn't always a miracle, but Jesus provided a miracle in this sense. And by the way, Paul did live and survive that, and everybody else in that ship, like he said would happen, survived it as well. So... this is amazing. Look who you're serving. Look who you're seeking after. Look who you're exploring in these Gospels. The Lord Jesus himself, who has authority over nature. Powerful, huh? God bless you.